What's up, everyone? I'm Colby Cheese, and I wanted to show you guys my newest character. Well, I should actually say my oldest character. This is a build that I started, probably one of the very first builds that I started whenever Open Beta was originally released, and I didn't really have much to go on. I didn't know a lot about the tree for Path of Exile, so I decided to follow the actual guide that Invalescos made for his CI Crit Dagger Shadow. And at the time, I realized that CI had been nerfed, so I decided to go for the Eldritch Battery Armor and HP version of his build. So I've actually been playing this character as that for pretty much this entire time, and I had to take a few breaks from leveling up the character because I ran into a few snags. It was actually extremely difficult to level him up without the right type of gear originally, as well as a few other things that I ran into, such as some mana issues in my mid-50s that made it really difficult to progress in Merciless difficulty. So once I was able to overcome some of those things and got a little bit better gear from grinding out stuff on my other characters, I was finally able to level him up and do quite well, in fact. So in fact, I got to the point to where I was doing maps with the Eldritch Battery build, and it was really strong. I had around, I think, 8,000 DPS on my Lightning Strike, and it was mostly elemental based. But as you can see, I'm actually a CI character right now, so I spent a few exalts buying some CI gear and re-speccing myself to the CI portion of the build after they made the changes to the tree, and it's a whole lot of fun. I definitely enjoy it. So I can go ahead and talk to you guys about the difference between the two things here, and also definitely give a shout out to Invalescos for coming up with this build, which is probably the most fun that I've had on any of my characters. And I've enjoyed a lot of my other builds quite a bit lately, but the fact that I was finally able to get this one working, it really made me happy because it's like I've been building towards this one for a long time. So anyways, you can see I am playing a map with a lot of skeleton rows, and one of the issues that CI characters are going to have is that they get stunned a lot, and that's because they have low HP, and stuns and status elements are based on how much HP you have. If they do a certain percentage of your max health, then it's going to stun or freeze or shock or burn you or whatever the case may be. And so I definitely am very susceptible to those things, but I never actually found that stun was an issue, even with these maps where Roas are charging on me. I do have a little bit of block and stun recovery on my gear, which is something you do want if you're going to be going for this Crit Dagger build in the CI version, and that does help you out a little bit with not staying stun locked for very long. What I do actually have a lot of problem with, if I'm facing certain mobs anyways, is getting frozen, because getting frozen makes it so you can't do anything for quite a long amount of time, whereas being stunned is just a very quick animation. And so I do have a Dispel Frozen Flask that I run, and if you're going to be doing this build yourself, you may have to pick up a Dream Fragments ring. Personally, I just play safe, and I use my flask whenever I see mobs that can freeze me, and if I'm out of charges for that flask, then I'll just stay really far back and shoot Lightning Strike. A lot of times I can do some crazy stuff with this build. There are three main abilities that make this build what it is, and the main one for AoE clearing is going to be your Lightning Strike, which is what you see me use most of the time here. And then for just massive amounts of single target DPS, you're going to use Double Strike. You can just completely go ham on rare mobs and take them out almost instantly. And finally, you've got Flicker Strike, which is something you kind of throw into your build every once in a while that makes it a lot more fun. You don't even really need Flicker Strike, but it's actually very awesome. It does a lot of damage. It's pretty much the same as my Double Strike. My Double Strike is around 14,000 DPS, so is my Flicker. And so when I start flickering the mobs, a lot of times I can actually just one-shot them. And when I have Blood Rage up, which is almost, well, that's always, you always have Blood Rage up with CI version, then I'm able to just easily punch through a bunch of weak mobs, and it's got a lot of mobility to it, so I'll flicker a few times and then Whirling Blades away. You'll notice I'm actually running 4 auras right now, and that wasn't extremely easy to do. I had to make sure and get a little bit of mana from gear, which I think I've got a total of around 100 extra mana from gear, and then I've got 2 passive nodes, which give me bonus max mana, and that gave me just enough to have 100 mana. And right now my Lightning Strike costs about 28 mana to cast, and with the 2% mana leech passive from the tree, that's all the mana leech that I need to be able to cast. So I can attack 3 times with Lightning Strike, and it's more than enough. I have no mana leech gems socketed on my Lightning Strike right now. It's a 4-link until I'm able to afford potentially the Dominion 6-link chest, which I would just basically add a mana leech and a weapon elemental damage, and that would make my the elemental portion of Lightning Strike go crazy. It would just be insane. Or I could potentially 6-link my Double Strike, and that would be a lot more powerful in group situations, because whenever I'm in a map with a group of people, and I have a group of friends that I run my 70+ maps with, whenever I'm doing those 70+ maps, I feel like a lot of times I'm not going to be using Lightning Strike as much. I mean, you definitely do sit in the back and Lightning Strike a lot whenever there's groups of enemies, but I tend to take the role of sniping out champions and rares that are dangerous. So more often than not, I'll just flicker to a rare and just start going ham on it with my Double Strike and just completely wreck it as fast as possible. So if I were to 6-link my Double Strike, that would probably make those situations a lot better. But for solo play and just farming and clearing stuff quickly, you obviously want to have your Lightning Strike as your 6-link ability. Anyways, I've been having a lot of fun with this build. Let me go ahead and show you guys my passive tree and kind of talk about some of the mechanics and how it works, and then I'll show off some more gameplay in another map. Okay, so my passive tree right now, I actually spent 2 exalts, like I said, respecing this to the CI version rather than making a new character. I was Eldritch Battery version, which basically I went up here and got all the health nodes and the increased elemental damage, so a lot of my damage was coming from the lightning portion of Lightning Strike rather than the physical, and then I had a lot less damage on Double Strike. Well, actually Double Strike was still pretty good because I used added fire, but anyways, for this particular version of it, I've gone up and gotten Inner Force, which is a big part of it because that multiplies the armor that you're going to get from your granite flasks. You definitely want to make sure you have some Surgeon's granite flasks. Since this is a crit-based build, every time you crit, you're going to recharge a portion of your flasks. So all of my flasks are Surgeons, and that's very useful to me. So these 2 are Surgeons of Iron Skin with very high Iron Skin rolls that give me around 50% damage reduction. It equals out to about 10,000 armor. And then, of course, the Quicksilver of Adrenaline, pretty standard there. I've got this granite flask that I wasn't able to really roll with what I wanted, but I put resistance on it just in case I get put like elemental weakness on yet. I do have purity that I can run instead of haste as one of my auras. However, I don't always have it on unless I actually run an elemental weakness map. And then for the mana flask, essentially just Surgeons with Dispels, Frozen, and Shield, because you have to have that on at least one of your flasks. I almost feel like running it on another one just in case I run out. But anyways, back to the passive tree here. Inner Force, like I said, multiplies all of my auras and all of my flasks, and so that's really important. Not only do you get more damage from running Wrath and Hatred, but you get the extra life on your Discipline aura, which is very, very important as well. I've got all of the Energy Shield nodes except for the ones in the middle right here. As I start to level up past level 80 or so, I'll probably grab some of these. But currently I'm working on the rest of the Dagger talent, so I'm going to go for the Dagger damage right here. I've got the Dagger crit damage chance, as well as all the multipliers over here on this side, and that's a big part of my damage. That crit multiplier is huge whenever I crit. So, well, let me just show you my damage. If you look at it, it says main hand damage does 481 physical damage, but that's going to be multiplied by an extremely large amount, so it's going to end up doing just insane amounts of damage. And I crit like 40% chance of the time, or 40% of the time that I'm attacking, I'm critting, which is pretty insane. And then of course, all the other survivability nodes from the nullification tree here. All right, so that is the passives that I'm using. That's pretty much all following exactly the Invalesco guide. So let me go ahead and show you guys my items real fast. All right, so my gear is pretty good. Some of it is. Some of it's not as great. This dagger I paid about 3 or 4 exalts for. It's the best dagger I've ever seen from searching on poe.xyz, and so it's doing quite well for me. I've got a helm here that is alright, I guess. It could be better, but the main reason I'm using it is for the accuracy rating. You don't get a lot of dexterity with this build, so you probably want to have some accuracy on a few pieces of your gear. I have it on my dagger and my helm, and so far I believe that's pretty much everywhere I've got. I actually have it on some rings. But yeah, as much accuracy as you can get. If you can get around 80% chance to hit, that's probably plenty, because it's going to be very difficult to get any more than that. My amulet is actually very nice. I've crafted this one myself. Gives me extra bonus energy shield, as well as crit chance and multiplier. And let me show you real fast. So right now I'm at 6,200 DPS on a lightning strike. If I take that off, it goes all the way down to 5,200. So that's a 1,000 DPS amulet right there. You wouldn't think so unless you were familiar with a crit build, but definitely really nice to have. The shield it's okay as well. It's got pretty good amount of energy shield on it and 1 resist. Pretty much the best I can get so far. I was trying to get another shield, but I just don't have the currency for it. My chest is alright. I've got about 433 ES. If you're gonna go for a CI build, I'd say on the low end, try and get around a 400 energy shield chest. I'm saving up my currency to try and get a 6 link right now, so that's just gonna hold me over until then. I've got this ring. A lot of it is because of the mana, but also I get a lot of resist from it, and the elemental damage will help with weapons, helps out my lightning strike. I've got this one here, which just essentially gives me some energy shield. That's about, I think like 200, let me see, 150. Yeah, it's about 150 energy shield right there just from the plus 40, just because of so many multipliers from the passive tree. And then my gloves, they really suck. This is probably my worst piece of gear. I just have not been able to find any other gear on forums or anything that I feel like paying for, and the only reason I'm using these gloves is because it has cold resist and attack speed. Even the energy shield sucks on it. I'd probably want some gloves with like 150 ES at least. My belt, you probably want to run a belt that has strength on it, because this build does have a low amount of strength in the passive trees, and so you're going to have trouble with some of your strength gems if you don't. And this also has double resist and energy shield, good enough for me. And the boots, I'm running with slink boots for the evasion. That helps me out with a little bit of survivability. Also, these have double resist and move speed. It's also hard to roll red, red, green, green on a blue piece. So that's another reason why I'm using slink boots. All right, well that is my gear, and I'm gonna go ahead and jump into another map here that I'm doing to show you guys a few other issues that I have with this build, so you can kind of get an idea of what it's like to play this. Okay, so back into a new map here now. I'm actually on the grotto, and this map mod is all the monsters are undead. And this is a pretty annoying map mod for a lot of people. And the reason for that is there's a lot of necromancers, and they just keep raising up the undead. And the only way to deal with that is to kill the necromancers, which can be very dangerous because, well, you have all these other mobs attacking you, and you can't really kill them because they just get resurrected anyway, so you're just constantly attacking mobs, which there's no point in that. But the cool thing about this build is, since I'm running Hatred and I crit for so much, I usually freeze the mobs, and you'll see here they're just popping and breaking, and they can't resurrect a mob that's been turned to ice shards. So these map mods are quite doable for a build like this. The only thing that is not very good about this build is, like I said, when you have low health, you're going to be very susceptible to status elements, and a lot of these mobs are actually shooting frost at me, so my attack speed is getting lowered a lot. And if I get frozen in place and I don't have any more Dispels Frozen and Chilled Flash ready to go, then it can be pretty damn scary. So there is a few points in this map where I get frozen and it's a little bit creepy. The other thing that might be a little bit dangerous about this build is I use a lot of Whirling Blades and a lot of Flicker Strike, which has the potential to desync. So if you don't have a good enough connection and you're afraid of desync and you don't know how to deal with it, you don't have like a hotkey to do the out of sync command, then you might be a little bit worried about this particular build. But overall, I think the fun factor of this build trumps any of the downfalls of it. And since I've already tested it in 70+ maps and I was able to just completely demolish enemies, and I've been doing a lot of soloing on it, overall I feel like this build is definitely viable. Obviously it's not going to be like, you know, as good as your cookie cutter ethereal knives or lightning arrow build where you can just roll stuff without thinking about it. But it's definitely a lot of fun if you have the quick reflexes to pull it off, and if you have enough currency to buy the items for it. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to kind of showcase this build. I think the last time I've seen a video of this was Invalescos showing himself farming the city of Sarn back in like closed beta. So I just wanted to give you guys an updated version with you know, better gear and updated you know, doing it in maps and harder situations. So pretty fun. I'll probably do some more videos of this later on. If you guys have some questions, make sure you leave it down in the comments below, and I'll go ahead and link. I'm not even going to link my build. I'm just going to link you straight to Invalescos' guide, because that's exactly what I followed. This was, again, like I said, I didn't even come up with this myself, so I'm not going to try and take credit for it. I'm just kind of showing it off. So I'll see you around for the next one. Make sure you subscribe. I'll be doing a lot more. It's Colby Cheese. Peace out.
Too much baggage.